Yo, what's going on, WOLFPACK? It's TC. This video is a quick studio tour for January 2022. I'm going to be going through what I'm using to make music right now, my setup, some of the way it's routed, the software that I'm using. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to hit like and subscribe. So let's get started. So the real centerpiece to my studio is this pair of Midas desks, a Midas F32 and F24. They've got Firewire built into them. I've got two of them. One of them is a 32 channel, the other one is a 24 channel desk. They've got incredible EQs. So the EQs have got top end, two sweepable mids, and a bass with a shelf, which is amazing. And the best thing about the EQs, as you can see here, is they've got Q controls on the EQs, which makes them very, very powerful. These two desks have really changed my workflow in the studio. The 24 channel desk has all of this hardware plugged into it pretty much, apart from the Meek and the SSL compressor. So I'm using a lot of old school hardware, and I'm going to go through the different bits of hardware that I've got going on. At the top of the rack, I've got this MX200 Lexicon reverb unit. It's like the cheapest reverb I could find to plug into the desk. It's actually really good. It's very clean. I've got myself a few presets here that I've set up for myself, and yeah, it works really well as like a little bed reverb in the background of tunes, and I really like it, but I would like to get some better reverb moving forward. Next up in the rack is this eMagic AMT8. I was really lucky to be able to pick this up. Really happy with it. It is an 8-channel MIDI in and out interface, and it's just rock solid. So good. So next is this Virus rack. Really like the Virus synth. Amazing synthesizers. And I've got a Virus Indigo as well. And when I make patches on the Virus Indigo, I can transfer them over to the Virus rack, so that I've got basically two viruses running at the same time. I got this off a dodgy geezer in Wales, and it's amazing. I mean, this one has a few issues. I would like to change the screen in there, but yeah, absolutely sick Virus rack. The next bit of equipment is this ESI4000 digital sampler. This was the first sampler that I ever owned. I think I was about 16 or 17 when I first got this sampler. Recently, I have added an OLED screen, which just looks amazing. Super happy with it. It's got those incredible Z-plane filters. I've also added a SCSI2 SD card reader. So I've now got 4 banks of 8 gigabytes going on, plenty of memory, really just a like solid drum and bass staple sampler. Next is this Roland JV1080 sound module. It's like the sound module of the 90s. They are classic sound modules. Loads of sounds, pianos, guitars, like just all sorts of things, strings. It's a really great sounding sound module. I went in on this sound module and swapped out the screen for this lovely OLED also. Next, I got this VP9000. It's a sampler but with vari-phrase processing, so you can change the pitch, time and formant in real time, and it's really the sound of that Daft Punk kind of vocal. I haven't managed to sort of really delve into it that much. I've obviously used it a little bit, but I need to really go in and spend a couple of days on this and make some really sick sounds. I know that this is going to change my life. I knew when I bought it, I was like, yo, I need to get one of these. And so yeah, the VP9000, it's got a zip drive in there, which I don't really trust. So I'm thinking about swapping that out for some kind of SCSI to SD sort of thing. But yeah, real nice, real good sound to it though, still sick. Next is this Akai S5000. The S5000 is just the best sampler in my opinion, I think. It's so flexible. There's like 2 MIDI interfaces built into it. I've recently put in a 64 gigabyte SCSI to SD in there, and I'm just really looking forward to like loading it up with a bunch of sounds, like all percussion. I also got this piece of software called Chicken Systems Translator, so I can actually turn contact banks into Akai banks, which is going to make it super fast to just transfer sounds over to it. It's also got a USB option in the back, which is connected to this old PC at the bottom of the rack using Windows XP, and I have managed to network that to my Mac, so I can now see the screen of the sampler on my Mac and do editing on the sampler through that interface, which is just crazy. Next up is this third dimension BBD 320. It is like a chorus box based on a classic bit of equipment that cost a lot of money back in the day, but this was really cheap and I just grabbed it kind of on a whim. It was like 150 quid. It adds a real nice chorus to any kind of sound. It seems to be anti-phase sort of safe, which is kind of cool, so I use it all the time. Yeah, nice. It's a sick little chorus. The BBD is plugged into one of the buses on the F24 here, you can see. So whenever I want to use it, it's only one button push away. Next up is this Meek SC22 photo optical compressor. Really interesting sounding compressor. I quite often use it on drums, but paralleled. So I will run the clean signal and the Meek signal together, and it adds a sick amount of punch to drums as like a drum bus. Recently been getting into doing that. I bought this a long time ago off a geezer called Steve China, and I was working for him building studios, and I really loved the sound of it. It really blew me away and I needed to get one. The Meek is on bus 1 on the Midas F32. Next up is this SDG Bus Compressor. This was made by a friend of mine called Dave D Product. He used to work with Full Cycle quite a lot. He was building a lot of equipment a while back, and he hit me up and he's like, do you want a bus compressor? I was like, yes, I definitely do. So I grabbed this off him. I also grabbed an EQ off him and a preamp at the same time. And this is kind of similar to the Meek in a lot of ways, but it's a lot more like rock solid, absolute classic sounding bus compressor, trusted by people all around the world, and it's nice to have a bit of homemade gear. And that bus compressor is plugged into the Midas F32 on bus number 2. Finally, at the bottom of the rack is this pair of Focusrite Trackmasters. They're both pretty good. I like them both. They actually have a different sound, so each one is different. One of them has a digital option as well, which is cool. On each one is an EQ section, compressor, and they have a pair of good preamps as well. So that concludes the rundown of the rack mount. One of the things I'm really proud of, which seems a bit silly, but these little labels are magnetic. So I have stuck labels to magnetic backing, and I've got labels for everything that I could possibly want to have on a channel, which it just makes so much sense for me. Instead of having to write it down, I just pick up the little label and stick it onto the desk on the relevant channel. So next up is my center section. This is very much a work in progress at the moment. I've built it out of wood myself. I'm not the best carpenter in the world, but I do give it a good go as much as I can. Mounted into the center section is these 8 Stream Decks. And with these Stream Deck buttons, I can load up plugins, as you can see here, into Ableton, which makes making tunes so fast. I only recently got the other 4 Stream Decks for this system, so they're not all implemented, and I need to do a lot of programming to get it all working. Next up is my DJ setup. Behind me when I'm working, whenever I finish a tune, I like to be able to mix it into other tunes straight away to check to see if the mix downs are correct and just to see what it's like in the mix. I got a couple of those little Genelecs here. This laptop runs the CDJs and it is networked with my main computer, so I can just drop tunes directly onto that. I use an Irig stream. I've been doing a lot of streaming on TikTok recently, so being able to just plug my phone in straight away
do a stream, no hassle, no fuss, really nice and easy. And every good TikTok streamer needs to have a ring light, so I got this ring light from Elgato, all linked up to the network, so I can change the heat and the temperature, and actually it ends up lighting the room really nicely. This is a channel strip that I use for the microphone when I'm streaming, just to get that real nice broadcast sound. I got a little bit of compression, a little bit of top end, and I use this Rode NT1A microphone for my broadcasting. It's got a really kind of radio sound. I was using a Neumann U87, but I actually broke it, unfortunately. Going back to the main setup, I'm a massive fan of RME sound cards. I love the clarity and the real solid image and mid-range, so I use this RME Babyface plugged into the desk. The desk also has Firewire built into it, so I use the Firewire to go out to do summing and then back into the RME sound card. I have just bought myself a new toy, some new AD converters, which I'm really excited to try out. And I guess really importantly, the monitoring system that I use is Adam P22As. They're quite big near field monitors or mid-field monitors. I find them to be very clear, very, very nice. I know them so well. I've had them for a very, very long time, but they are definitely sick. You might notice a lack of any kind of acoustic treatment in my room, and that is the next thing that I want to address after I've plugged in my new AD converters. So at the hub of everything is this Mac Pro. I use a late 2013 6-core Mac Pro with 16 gigabytes of memory, which doesn't actually seem like that much really, but it seems to do the trick for me. I've never had it fall over. It does have this thing when I restart it, sometimes it doesn't want to get going, so I don't tend to restart it that often. But yeah, so I use a Mac Pro as like the main hub of the studio to do all of the computing. So lastly, for the hardware, I mentioned it earlier, I use this Virus Indigo to create sounds that I can then put onto the Virus rack. Virus synthesizers are definitely a staple of drum and bass. Some of the Reese's and sounds that you can get out of it, it's just ridiculous really, and it has a real hardware flavor to it. Amazing synth. So moving into the software environment, there's some new plugins that I picked up in the last Black Friday. This one has really blown me away. It is Andrew Scheps Omni channel. It's really incredible. You can move the different parts around in terms of order. And one thing that's really smashed my head in was the ability to be able to load Waves plugins into another plugin. So when you save your presets, you could have a little bit of delay on there, and I love the saturation is just amazing, just incredible saturation. The compressors are great. I also picked up this plugin called Studio Rack, which is so sick, with the ability to create your own racks and save them with multiple plugins with Parallel. Just being able to save whole racks of plugins to save yourself time, even though it's only within the Waves environment, I feel like it's such a game changer, especially when I start using the Stream Decks, all the 8 Stream Decks. It's going to be really quick to be able to just load up like a pair of delays or reverb and delay combinations, or combinations of different plugins that are already set up. And you can also use these macros on the left hand side to control all the parameters. So it's a really powerful tool, and I can't wait to start making a ton of patches in there. On the same concept, I picked up this plugin called Patchwork, which is similar, but you can load any plugin you want. Speaking of channel strips, this one by Plugin Alliance, the Neve 1081, is insane. I always forget about these things. That's why having Stream Decks in front of me is so good, because it reminds me of the plugins that I love, and this one in particular is crazy. I really have to take time to mention Vital by Matt Titel. It's an absolutely insane synth. It's really powerful, 3 oscillators, really good effects section, and the modulation possibilities are insane. It's just so powerful a synth. Definitely worth picking up, and there are loads of TC presets on tcdnb.com, link in the description. So that concludes my studio tour. I'm going to be building a new desk to house the consoles, and I want to make more videos on that process. And also, every studio is a work in progress, and I would love for you to come on the journey with me on the improvements as they happen. I want to also apologize for the dust. After looking at the footage, I noticed it's really dusty and I should have dusted before. And finally, if you found anything in this video interesting, please smash the like button. Don't forget to hit subscribe. Hit the bell for notifications so you can keep up to date with all that's new from me. Let me know your thoughts and comments below. If you have any idea for future videos, I read all your comments. Don't forget to join the Discord server and check out the links to the samples and presets in the description. A massive big up to all the WOLFPACK, and thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Peace!